Welcome back to the pod. I'm here with my man, Jhamani Long. You might not have heard me say that because he might be blurred out right now and you don't know what he looks like. And it's a shame if he is because this man is good looking. All right. So I'm grateful for you to hear his story. He's a minister. He loves serving God's people. He loves serving the Lord. He loves mortifying, killing his sin, and he hates his sin, and he's put in a lot of work. So, bro, thanks for being here today. I'm going to ask you this kind of same questions as I sip on my little smoothie that my wife made. The same questions I ask everybody, dude. What's your porn story? Like, how'd you see it? How'd you get into it? How did it kind of sink its claws into you?
Hmm. Yeah, man. First of all, T-Mac, man, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so pretty much like for me, my story, I think my first exposure to pornography was on a picture. I don't know, man, so
A
far back, but
picture?
like
What's a still picture? Who sees those nowadays?
yeah, man, it was way back, man, way back. So it was crazy. Like I was playing around like with my neighbors, with my friends and stuff. We were outside and we all had, man, I don't even know if people know about this, but the PSP, do you remember, a PS? Yeah, we had the PSP, and it's pretty much what the Nintendo Switch is now. That's what the PSP should have been now, but it was just so far earlier in time.
Well, for clarity, dude, I'm PS1. All right.
PS1. Okay,
I'm
okay. Yeah.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
That's my generation, just for clarity. All right.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you already know. But yeah, so pretty much like they were on some site and just like scrolling through, and I'm just like, what is this? I don't know what site it was, and I was just looking, and it was just like all these like naked girls and stuff. And like I was just like curious, just looking because I'd never seen anything like that before. And yeah, that was like kind of like my first like exposure to it. And I think just like talks around in like middle school and high school of just like, oh, have you seen this person is just curious, like, what is that, who is that, and then just like exploring that just for myself and just like being exposed to like more videos, I think, and more when I was in like middle school, like early, like I think, yeah, more when I was in middle school. And then just being in, I just felt like it didn't really, I was like looking at it, but I just never like was really like masturbating to it until maybe like around in like college and stuff. So it was like a lot later just for me. But then, once I got a girlfriend in college and started just becoming like really sexually active, that's when I started to like watch porn like a lot more just to like try like satisfy like that craving I had when like she wasn't there.
Right.
Uh and then I think for me, I mean, obviously just porn did a lot of damage to me. And I think one of the many things it did was just one is just objectifying women. So I was just looking at my girlfriend just like a lot differently. And I was like, yeah, just looking at her as just like honestly, just literally someone just to like, like not to sound crude, but just to get a nut off of and everything. So just like didn't really look at her as like a person sometimes just because of like the damage that porn was doing to my brain and just like yeah, like how I viewed her, how I just overall just viewed women.
Dude, I remember being a freshman in college and hearing the guys down the hall from me talk about women. It was the first time I heard this, and they were talking about, man, that didn't matter anything about the woman. They kept saying this thing, I just got my nut in. That's all they
Yeah,
kept saying. That's all they cared about.
yeah,
And dude, it affected me too. I'm like, oh, that's college.
yeah,
That's what we do in college, apparently, because that's the
yeah.
culture around you. So, man, I appreciate you sharing that.
No, yeah, no, yeah. It's yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, it's definitely still a thing even now, just like, certain sports just have that talk and everything. That's just like the culture behind it. And I feel like for me, like I wasn't really surrounded that much by it, but like, and I wasn't really that person to talk about it that much, but that was still like in my mind. And I was literally like doing those things and thinking of that, regardless if I was like saying it out loud or not. So that just like deeply, just reflecting on that, that just like deeply affected me and just like how I treated just women in my life and just, my ex at the time.
Mm.
So yeah, I felt like that just really affected me. And then once like yeah, once the relationship ended, I just knew I was just like deep in a hole and I just like needed to get out. It was just something I just never really talked to anybody about just because I never really knew how to talk to somebody about it.
Right. And
And
you're
yeah,
you're you're a believer at this point, right?
yeah, so I'm a believer, but I'm just living like two completely different
Right.
separate lives. Like on the like if you're just looking at me from the surface, it's just like, wow, Jhamani, he's really growing in his faith. He's doing all these amazing things. Like he's really involved in AIA and stuff in college. But I was just like underneath, man, I was like completely just like gripped by sin sexually. And I was just like completely just like attached to pornography. It was something I just like could not break. I mean, I would just try to just will it just on my own, just completely like, just try to be like, okay, hey, I'm gonna stop doing it for a week or stop doing it for a month. And just like whenever I would feel that urge, like I would just try and fight off as long as I can. But eventually I would give in, whether that was a day, a week, a month, whatever that was. But I just never invited anyone in, never told anybody about it. And just really like struggle with it just because I mean, a lot of my close friends, like back from high school and stuff, it was just like, bro, like, what do you mean you're struggling with it? You're not hurting anybody and stuff. I had
Right.
like no, like I was a believer, but I didn't know how to like talk about it in a way where it wasn't like a lot of people around me like supported it. It was like no, well, I knew there were some believers who like didn't support it, but I just like didn't go to them. I don't even think it was because of shame. I think it was because of shame, but just because I didn't know how to like do that. Like
Right.
how would I start that conversation? How would that work? So that's something for me that reflecting on that with just like anyone who is like struggling in this sense, like I'm just like, okay, maybe they just don't know how to talk about it. Maybe they just don't know this is the thing that you can't talk about. It is easier. It can be easier to talk. It is uncomfortable for sure, at certain points, but it can be easier to talk about it if you like say it this way, say it that way.
Yeah.
But me, I
It's
just
like
like
it's like you need training
yes,
to how to explore. Young people need training in how to ask for help. Ministers need training and how to engage with help.
mhm,
That's really my job now is teaching ministers and how to engage people. Don't wait for them to come to you because they won't. Here's how you go to
yes,
them.
yes.
So yeah, you're exactly right. So tell me, you start to recognize this as a problem. Do you reach out for help? What's kind of the next step there in your journey to find sexual wholeness?
Yeah. I think I talked to I talked to my team leader about it. Not my team, my person who was mentoring me, discipling me. I was talking to him about it, and he gave me like some good tips. Gave me I don't remember what the book was called. He gave me like a really good book to read on and everything. And just really encouraged me to like jump in the community with people. And I did everything but do the community part. I read the book.
Yeah,
And I
that's
was like, man,
usually
this stuff is yeah. I was like, read the book. This stuff is really good. Like, oh wow, like just thinking about my roots of just like it's so much more deeper than just like not watching it. Like
yeah,
yeah, like that's a part of it is just like not trying to engage in those things, but it's a reason why you want to engage in it. And just like for me, just learning like, oh, like it's what you're feeding, like stuff on social media, music, just media in general, just like TV, movies, like anything that could be like sexualized. And that really like opened my eyes. I never like heard about that before. And I'm just like, wow, it's not just porn, not just like seeing naked girls. It's like all in music, all in the things that I'm watching, the things that I'm taking in,
yeah.
just with my eyes, with my mind, and with my ears and everything. So that just really yeah, that was just very interesting to me. But I was still gripped in it because I just never jumped in community with anybody, was still just trying to just will it on my own, and just trying to do everything on my own. So yeah, that was definitely that for sure. And I think like you're a very direct person, and like you mentioned that like
Really?
yeah, in a good way because you need
Nobody's ever said that about me. I'm just kidding.
yeah, you're very direct, and it's very good for everybody because one, like especially being in ministry and just like trying to reach people. You need to reach people. You got to do initiate with them. You can't wait for
Yeah.
them to initiate with you because, probably like almost 10 times out of 10, it's not going to happen. So it was very good for like my mentor to like initiate with me and be direct with me because I wasn't being direct with myself, so
There you
that
go.
was really good for me to like look inwards and just being like, man, this is a sin. Like I need to like really I was more aware of my sin, which was very good. But I was also like I was really aware of how more broken I was than before. But I also was aware of just my need for a savior, and that just really helped me to understand it. But I was still struggling because I just never had any community and everything
Mm.
too. So
So now you're on staff, you're wanting to serve God, you hate your sin, you're still having some struggles at that point, and you've been putting in work though. You end up getting community, right? You
yeah,
end up joining
yeah, I
up
didn't.
with some groups and going through some things, correct?
Yeah, so I didn't mention that. So just like the transition between like, well, what did you do from there, from here? So I tried out applied for an internship with Athletes in Action, and one of the things that they had everyone do who were interns at the time was do be a part of a sexual wholeness accountability group. And for me, I mean, one of the reasons why I joined ministry was because well, one, I didn't really know what I wanted to do like career wise with my life in college. I just knew like if I wasn't doing ministry, I would have just went back home, tried to work and everything. And I just knew like honestly for me, like I just knew just knowing myself, I wouldn't have just went out and tried to have community. I wouldn't have been that initiative. Like I wouldn't like taking those steps like that. I just knew I was gonna fall and I knew I was gonna be in a complete rut if I just like moved back home. So I was like, man, if I'm a part of ministry and they have me do something like this will be like really good for me. Like I
Mm.
just knew like this is something I need. Regardless, I've never been in an accountability group before. I never even knew like what it was about. I mean, I heard of like AA and stuff, but I was like, oh, that's AA. Like that's like this accountability stuff is completely different from AA. It's not as it's not as like vulnerability and stuff. It's not like that. You just see stuff on the TV shows and just think
Yeah.
like, oh, it's not like that, right?
Yeah.
But then just like I remember I was part of the group for like a week and I was like, man, I hate this, man. This is not it for me. I was like, man, this isn't it. And I feel like just the more, but I was like, I gotta stay in it just because like, I want to be an athlete in action. I want to be an intern. I want to be able to serve the
Mm.
athletes around me. So this is something I need to like really work on just for myself and just like pouring into the next generation. So, and this is something like I would love to like teach others, right? So, I just think it was really cool. I stayed in it, and now like I find after about a couple weeks to a month, I was really starting to understand just the real true meaning like behind accountability and vulnerability. And man, it just really like changed my world, and it just really just helped me to one be vulnerable. I wasn't really as vulnerable before. And I was just scared, just scared about what people would think about me, just full of shame, just recognizing all these things within myself. So it just really helped me to just step out in faith, step out in community with other people. And it just helped me to understand myself. Like we're all created uniquely. Like God is hand knitted us like all uniquely. We're all made in God's image, but just in different ways. And that includes like our strengths and our weaknesses. So like some of the things can be like huge temptations for me sexually, and then for someone else, it could be something completely different. I knew one thing for me that was a huge temptation, and I could just never understand it. But being a part of an accountability group and having resources helped me to really understand my roots. One of the things was boredom. Like boredom was huge for me, and just
Yeah.
like why I fell into sexual sin so many times was just because I was so bored. I literally had nothing to do. Well, you're never really bored. You always can have something to do, but I just never like made an initiative to make a list of something to do when I felt bored. So immediately when I felt bored, like those pathways in my brain would just say like, okay, hey, let's go to porn. Let's go to this. Let's go to masturbation. Let's go to that. So it was just like automatic for me. And that's the reason why I fell every time. So having a game plan of just like what can I do when I'm bored, having a list of things to do when I'm bored, and also just like inviting people in. I was still struggling with that. But once I was a part of the call, it just like it was just really helpful for me just to be more vulnerable, especially when I like relapsed or anything. I could just like say it to the group, and it took me a while to like do it. Sometimes I would like hold back and I would just wait like a couple days or a week or 2 weeks. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are they gonna say? What are they gonna say? And like it was nothing. It was just all grace, you know. And I was just like so like, oh wow, like experiencing that, like we all know of God's grace, but like actually experiencing that we experience that grace through his people, you know. So
Exactly.
I thought that was just really, really cool. That I was experiencing grace, but I also was experiencing truth as well. And it wasn't just all grace, all truth. They weren't just like trying to just shove the Bible like down my throat and just make me feel bad about my relapse. But they also, on the other end, weren't just being passive aggressive. I would receive grace, and then I would just have some truth about like how I can be able to like help better combat that next time, you know. So that
Yeah,
was
man.
really, really for me.
You know me, man. I'm not a passive aggressive guy, I'm more of an aggressive guy.
Yep. Yep.
And so I love our groups, though, especially like what I try to point out in a group is when you're in the moment. Like I did another intern group this morning. We talked a lot about this. When you're in that kind of wave of whether it's boredom, just temptation of any kind, frustration, whatever, you're
Yep.
in the danger zone, as we call it.
Yep.
You're subjective to it. Like you are in it. You're subject to it, and you
Mm.
can't make objective decisions. We've learned that, right, as we've studied what's happening inside our brain when we're traveling those old neural pathways, like you just explained. When you're bored, you're probably going to make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you have a group that you can say, hey, this is where I am, and now you have guys who love you and know you, who can give you an objective approach to whatever situation you're doing. That's why the community piece trumps 10 times out of 10 reading a book.
Yeah.
And
100%.
guys who will speak truth into your life and love. And man, it goes, you will. So somebody's watching this and they're just going to go, oh, what book do I need to read next? And what app can I find that I don't have to tell anybody in the world? Man, you will not see success. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you'll see a little, but you've got to let other people in it. So, what has it been about our group specifically with other staff that you've enjoyed really well? Whether it be the check-ins, just knowing what guys are going through the videos, studying the word, what really kind of jumps out at you and kind of makes you really want to pursue sexual wholeness even more?
Man, it's a bunch of stuff, T-Mac, and that's a great question. I feel for me, well, one of the things I was kind of thinking of as you were talking, it just reminded me of it, but just knowing that that a lot of like every guy struggles, every guy is tempted, every guy is tempted, and you think, I feel like the enemy really wants you to be in secrecy, and the enemy wants you to be in isolation, and you said this before, but just like isolation is like pouring fuel. And there's a difference between isolation and solitude. There's definitely a difference there. But like isolation is just when you're just like alone for long periods of time in just unhealthy ways. And you're just like, like deriving yourself from connection, from community. Like we're called like we have solitude. We could just be by ourselves for a certain moment, just like with our time with the Lord, just like, just meditating, being to ourselves, just like resting after a long day, being in solitude like that for sure. But isolation to me is like just longer periods of time. But yeah, when you isolate, you just kind of think, oh man, like no one else is going through this. I'm the only person that's going through this. And the enemy just wants you to believe, he wants you to rationalize in a certain way of just like, yeah, like no one else is going through this. I'm the only person that's going through this. Nobody is going to understand me. But being a part of the group, being a part of Freedom Fight just helped me to realize like, oh my gosh, like if someone walks by an attractive girl and it's a huge temptation for them to just like eye her down or something like that. I used to just think like, this is just me. Like I'm the only person that's going through this. But looking at all the check-ins, checking in with you guys when we have our video calls, everybody's going through the same stuff. People experience stress, experience anxiety, all these things, right? And that just really helped me just to really open up more because everyone understands. Like when I call you, have a check-in call with you, check-in call with any of the guys, I'm just like, oh wow, like like they understand. Like I've never had a call where someone's just like, I don't understand. Like, what do you mean by that? Like everybody understands because every guy is a guy. So that I think that just really, really helped me just to be more vulnerable, step more in faith, just to community and like execute Brace more. And like the people who are watching this, most people don't even know what Brace is, but one of our like key foundational things that we do when we feel tempted, and just to be able to practice and execute it. But
Yeah.
uh,
Y'all,
yeah,
I
I don't
tell
know if you
everybody
want to
all the
go into
time,
it or yeah.
you're not that special, right? Like,
No, no,
like
yeah, no.
Satan's really kind of doing the same thing to everybody.
Yes,
But
exactly.
his best trick is that you think you're the only one. And
Yeah,
so you're not that special. You're just another guy, another pawn he's trying to take down. Now, being a minister, I think he comes at you a little harder. And
yes,
so
for
that's
sure.
why you got to have more accountability, more guardrails set up, more things to keep you safe, and you got to bust your tail a little bit harder to walk in
Yeah,
righteousness and kill your sin. And man, dude, I think you've done a great job of that, and I've been super proud of you and
appreciate that,
just
TJ.
seeing
Thank you, man.
how much you've grown over the couple of years that I've known you. It's been phenomenal, man. Now,
Yeah.
as we kind of wrap it up here, dude, what would you say to somebody who's listening? Maybe it's a college student, maybe it's another minister, and they don't like that they watch pornography, but
Yeah.
they keep doing it. What would you say to them?
That's good. I would just,
Or they don't like that they're hooking up with their girl. They like it,
yeah,
but they know, man, they're hurting their future marriage and they're not honoring the Lord. What would you say to
yeah,
them?
man. I would just say like literally like please for the love of God like talk to somebody about it like get in community and I feel like with community I used to think man I gotta like tell my business to everybody like you don't have to do that but just like find somebody who you trust who is like mature very spiritually who you trust who you can be able to share those things with just because it's good to eat at you like it's good to eat you alive like I mean the spirit is I mean, sometimes we can quench the spirit, but the spirit is still in us, and it hurts. I think in Psalms 32:3, David says something like, "I refuse to confess my sin," and like my body ached and it like groaned, or something like that. And it's like there's a physical component to not confessing our sin. It hurts us like
Hmm.
spiritually and literally like physically. It hurts us when we don't confess and we just like keep things in and it's like we're torturing ourselves almost. And I know for me, for the longest time, like that's how I definitely felt, especially when I was aware of my sin, and it just like it killed me inside. But when I confess to people, James 5:16, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another so that you may receive healing. Like it is the greatest feeling in the world when you can confess to somebody who you trust and like it just feels like just a whole boulder is just lifted off of you. So I would just say to those people out there, because probably just a lot of people out there who are listening in, they're struggling. They probably just watched it today or just watched it yesterday or something like that, real recent, and they're just struggling. They don't know what to do. And I'll just say, like, find the closest person next to you, who you can trust. And well, that's the thing too. Well, maybe a question that I have for you, T Mac, is like, well, some people ask that question like I don't have anybody like where do I go to if I don't have anybody so what would you like kind of like what would you kind of say to that just to people who feel like I literally don't have anybody like what can I do with this where can I go.
Right. Yeah, most believers, if they're a part of a church, do have people. They just don't trust those people. And that's on
Mhm.
them, not the people
Yeah,
that they would be sharing with.
right.
You're going to have to take a risk to the glory of God. You're going to have to put yourself out there. God will not answer your prayers. I say this every week. God will not answer your prayers to just free you of this desire to never hit you again because he's already answered it and you didn't like the answer. The answer is other people. You got to go to other people. You
Right.
got to invite them in. You got to share. So find somebody in your church, find somebody in your ministry. Do this. Find somebody you don't know
Mm,
that you know is a Christian. Maybe they're at another church or whatever, and just barf up all your garbage on them.
mm.
What are you going to lose? You don't have a relationship with them already, you know?
Yeah. That's good.
And you might just
Good.
be surprised at where they point you into. And then the Freedom Fight, if you download the Freedom Fight app, on the bottom of the app, there's a community tab where it's just guys. And if you're a female, you can choose female, and it'll be only females in that female community going crazy, just sharing their stories, lifting each other up, calling each other to righteousness. And you can find accountability there to actually
Mm,
connect with dudes. So that'd be a great resource to do.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
you gotta have it. And you and I know that we're blessed within the AIA community that we have that network and we can do that. And we have a
Yeah.
restorative culture where people can come and confess their sin and they won't have a consequences to their job if they haven't acted out with other people or they haven't acted out anything illegally. They're going to get help and they're going to get freedom and they're going to be
Yeah.
loved. So not
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
has that, and that's just the Lord's grace in
Mhm.
our staff lives, and praise God for that. Which
Yeah.
is another reason why I think Crew AA is a great place to work because we have that set up. So, dude, I just want to say thanks, man, for coming on, for sharing your story, man. I think it's great. I think God's going to use you on the campuses you're at in incredible ways. The God is going to set people free, and He's going to do it through people like you, bro. And there's going to be guys that are going to know you. There's going to be guys whose children are going to know about you because of the way you've worked in their lives. So my encouragement to you is to be bold, to love the Lord, and vulnerability is contagious, man. Just keep sharing your story, keep doing it. So thanks for coming on, bro.
Man, T Mac, I really appreciate you for having me, man. Thank you so much.
You bet, dude.
All
Well, thanks
right.
for watching. We'll see you on the next episode. And like and share it with a brother in Christ because they might find this super encouraging. Thanks.